What's up YouTube, Mr. Lemon here, and today I want to discuss Path of Exile 2's latest patch now that we've got a chance to play it. Yesterday we went over the patch notes. I was very excited to see everything that they put in. I thought they had a lot of really good ideas. I thought they had some great adjustments on paper. And then, of course, we have to see what happens in reality. And I would like to describe that as best I can through three little graphs. Now, the difficult thing, it is extremely hard to balance these properly. And this is early access and they're still tweaking, and I know they're going to continue to tweak. So I at least want to put my advice, my thoughts back down for them, just write them down and let them take these and decide what they want to do with them as before. But essentially, the pre-patch kind of looked like this, right? So the loot was, pretty rough. I'm going to say this is just like good versus bad in a way almost over time. Maybe that's not a good way to describe it. Whatever. The loot was there. The bosses, this is like balance. If you're on a 45-degree angle, right? I don't know the best way to label these graphs, but I'm going to try and label them as balanced and solid versus not. So in this case, you can see with loot, we needed more loot. There wasn't enough loot. Bosses, I thought were perfect. And white mobs, I thought were maybe a little bit overtuned. They were a little bit strong. Now, of course, when you raise loot, you're going to decrease bosses and white mobs a little bit, right? Because by raising loot, you're going to be increasing your power. So this is where these three things kind of swing back and forth. Maybe it's not even technically a chart so much as a pendulum here, that it's swinging back and forth of being, this is too strong, this is, too weak. So think of it in that way. Now, post-patch, I feel like, we are a little bit here. Hopefully this makes some sense to people. I feel like it's gone this way. I think loot has actually gone to be too much. I don't want to say it feels like Path of Exile 1, because clearly it does not. Path of Exile 1, the loot is everywhere and insane. But I do feel like the number of items and the amount of rare items, especially that are dropping, have gone up too high. I think that's been the biggest issue. I feel like, as I'm like, oh wow, I'm just really getting a lot of loot. And I'm taking, it's like my inventory fills up. I can't even go through the map because my inventory is filled up. I got to go back a couple times and all of this, which is fine. But it does feel like it's gone slightly overboard. So I would personally recommend bringing it down some again. I think there is a good middle ground here where currency is a little bit higher, loot drops are a little bit higher, but less than where it is right now. Because right now, like I say, it feels like overly rewarding. It's already kind of turned towards loot pinata almost slightly, and I'm like, that's too much too fast. So I would bring this back down. Bosses, I think, are in a worse state because of this over here. The power has crept up, and I feel like I don't get to interact with the bosses in the way that was as fun. If I go through my normal playthrough, which was on old patch, it was the perfect boss experience. It was absolutely like The boss fights were long. I was using all of my flasks, stretching it out through the entire fight. I was having to dodge and roll and just pecking away, chipping away at the bosses. I was going through every cycle of the phase, but I was still able to damage them. I was still able to beat them. A little bit of a DPS check on like the lava walking monster and stuff, but you know, like, it was great. I mean, the bosses were in the most perfect position possible. But now I kind of destroy the bosses a little bit, or they one-shot me. But I don't get to engage with them nearly as much with their mechanics and go through and you know, focus more and really be in the fight. I felt like through Cruel and into the maps, I haven't had that experience with it as much, and it's been kind of disappointing because I felt like the boss fights were the like best thing ever. I want them to be really hard and rewarding, but like, make them hard again. Right now, their difficulty, because I've strengthened so much, their difficulty has gone down, and that's definitely, you know, sad to me. And it's not about me being more experienced. It's really just I'm more powerful. I've gotten way too much loot too quickly, and so the bosses have gone down some. And this could also be something not even directly related to post-patch, but maybe just as character power strengthens. And so maybe there's a way to look at just increasing the total life and decreasing some of, you know, I know they're doing some nerfs and buffs on different skills, and like balancing there through Cruel and maps. Right? Like, I just want them to make the bosses back to what it was when I played through on normal. That's where I feel like they really should be. And if they're here, it really takes away from a lot of the beauty that was built into these boss fights. Now, white mobs, I felt like were slightly overtuned before. And I think they've actually come down to the right spot. So I would say white mobs are feeling like they're in a really good spot. They're still very dangerous. They'll still kill you if you get in the middle and get surrounded and can't roll out because, you know, it's too tight, whatever. They force you to like pick and choose how you're going to go in and fight them, but you can move through them. You can deal damage. You're not kiting backwards 30 times just to fight a single group of them. So that was the biggest issue I had with my first playthrough through normal, was the white mobs felt so much, I kept going backwards and backwards. I'd have to kite every single one backwards, that the large maps felt much larger. But the maps didn't feel nearly as large once I was able to actually just kind of like move through the white mobs. That kind of helped a lot with that. So again, I think like finding the right balance here, you know, like bosses, we had it before. White mobs, we have it now. So there's clearly an adjustment, kind of probably in the HP values and a little bit of how you damage them, of bosses to white mobs that needs to be fluctuated. And it's probably, if we go back to what old bosses were, then decreasing, you know, some of white mobs' HP and defenses a little bit, maybe brings them back to normal. And then finding that right line in the middle for loot, to make it just like exciting to get a rare again, exciting to get a drop again. Because that was something that I felt like really stuck out in the first day. Yes, there wasn't enough currency. Yes, there wasn't quite enough just drops like bases and stuff, but rares were still very rare, and that was still a really cool feeling when a rare would drop and you'd be like, oh yes, like that's awesome. And now they're kind of dropping like candy again, right? And I'm like, oh, like it's too much. So did they potentially overshoot the mark? I would say yes. And I think it's surprising, and I'm not even like blaming them and being like they did this on purpose and whatever, right? It's one of those like fine tuning things. They even went in and they're like, we're going to just do these like small changes, but that can have big impacts you don't quite realize until it comes out. Which is why I'm putting this out there and just sharing with them that, hey, I think it went a little too far. I think there is a good medium there. I don't think we found it for loot yet, but we have found it for bosses, and I do think we have found it for white mobs as well. And I would very much be like, let's really try and hone in on getting those two in the right spots, because when you have the white mob like just moving through a base map at the right speed, ooh, it feels good. And then, man, when you have a really hard boss and you finally beat it, oh, it feels so great. Like, I had two fantastic experiences with those. So, yeah. So that's kind of just something I wanted to share out to them because, again, it's early access and that's what you do. You give your feedback. I'd be curious to hear everybody else's feedback down in the comments below. Do you think they went too far with the changes to loot? Do you think they didn't go far enough? Do you want to still see more? Does it feel perfect to you now? I'd love to know and kind of get everybody's opinions on it, right? Not just mine. But that is my feeling. Mwah. Don't forget to like and subscribe, YouTube. Peace.